for joining me today. My name is Heather Van Looy from Handcrafting with Heather. I've got a beautiful birthday card featuring some of the retiring products from Stampin' Up! To share with you today. This card uses the En Francais background stamp, the Fabulous Florets flower stamp set, which I just absolutely adore. I can't believe it's going to be going, and the Sentiment from Create a Cupcake. These stamp sets will be available while supplies last until June 4th, 2014. If you want to get them before they're gone, I would love to assist you with that. Just visit www.handcraftingwithheather.com and click Order Online Now. I started this project by stamping the En Francais background stamp in smoky slate ink onto a panel of Very Vanilla, and I don't want this to be very dark, so I'm going to stamp off on my scrap of paper first, and then I'm going to stamp it onto my Very Vanilla panel. And push, 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 and that's exactly what I want. Nice and light is a pretty background, but not distracting from my main focal point, which will be the flowers. Next, I'm going to take a little small amount of adhesive, just enough to temporarily stick this panel to the middle of my card. Make sure that's nice and straight. Looks good. I'm going to be stamping the flowers on the panel and the background in a variety of light and dark tones. So I'm sometimes going to stamp off and sometimes going to stamp directly, just to give the image added depth. I'm going to start with basic gray ink and the leaf image, and I'm going to stamp up. Now I will tell you, I have made this card several times today, because see this little part of this stamp right here? If you push too hard right in that area, that leaves a mark on your card, and I have had a lot of mess ups today. So we're going to try and be careful about not stamping, not pushing too hard on that particular area. So I'm going to do one in the foreground here that's going to be full strength, and I didn't get my extra stamp, so that's nice. I'm glad. Always a little bit nervous with this one, but it does have such beautiful results. This one I want to do lighter, so I'm going to stamp off here, and then I'm going to stamp onto my panel so that I get a nice light image that'll be sort of in the background. Then I'm going to switch to Rich Raspberry for my next stamped image. And I'm going to do some full strength and then come in with some lighter. So I want one in the foreground that's going to go almost directly over that one I just did. And then I'm going to do another full strength over here on the side. And then I'm going to come in on this other side, and I'm going to stamp off and then do a lighter image, and then come in and do on top of that, layer in a darker image. And I want to fill in this gap a little bit, so I'm going to turn my stamp a little bit and do a full strength that just goes barely onto the panel. So that's starting to give us some nice depth to the image, and that's really all of the stamping that I want to be on my card base. So I'm going to take off this panel that I just put on top. I'm going to set the card base aside for now, and I'm going to come back in with my flower stamp, and I'm going to stamp 1, 2, 3 flowers, 2 in the Rich Raspberry and 1 in the gray. So I'll start with the Rich Raspberry since I've got that right here all ready to go. And I'm going to just ink up my stamp really well. And then I'm going to come in right about here and stamp once. And then I'm going to come in over here on this side. I'm going to go off of the page a little bit. I turned my stamp so that I wasn't going the same direction for all of my blooms. And then I'm going to use my Stampin' Scrub to get that red ink off, because I don't want to get any ink transfer when I switch to my gray ink, because I'm going to go back to that basic gray color now for the next part of my flower. So back with the basic gray ink, and I'm going to come in here and turn my stamp just a little bit. I'm going to overlap this razzleberry one a little bit. It won't matter so much, but it gives some nice dimension to it. All right, so that is it for our stamped flowers. Now I've got a black panel that I'm going to use as a mat for this one, and we'll put that onto our card base like so. It's important that you have a mat, because when you use this layered panel technique for stamping, you get a little bit of a halo effect at the edge where you have like a void in your stamp. So I'm going to just use some of this multi-purpose liquid glue to put my stamped panel onto its mat. Just line that up nice and easy. I like this liquid glue for this because it gives me a little bit of, I have a little bit of time to maneuver before it dries. And then I'm going to use some Stampin' Dimensionals on the back of this to just pop that up off the card front a little bit. Gives it a little bit of added interest. And I like to have one in the center so that it doesn't sag at all. I'll just pull off those little protective papers. And we will be ready to add that to our card base. Now you want to make sure that you pick something like a stem or something to line up so that you make sure that your design is centered correctly and that it actually continues off of your panel like you intended it to. Isn't that looking pretty? All right, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to stamp the sentiment, and because of this black mat I wanted to bring some of that in, so I'm going to use this Stays On black ink on just a scrap of, scrap of Very Vanilla. You can see this is my word window punch scratch paper. So I'm going to just stamp up the happy birthday stamp from the Create a Cupcake, and then I'm going to down and straight up, and hopefully we get a clean stamp, which it looks like we did. And then I'm going to use the word window punch to just line that up. I love this word window punch for sentiments because that with the modern label punch creates a really nice finished look without much effort. And to tie in my basic gray, I'm using basic gray cardstock, just a little scrap of it. I never throw away scraps because you can use them for things like this. And I'm just going to use little half dimensionals that I've cut to put that onto the modern label punch. And there we go. Center that. Oops. That looks about right. And then I'm going to put this right here, but because this is popped up and the front isn't, I'm going to put half dimensionals on the front end of this, and then I'm going to put some of that liquid glue along the back edge so that it'll sit on the popped up part. And it won't be too, oops, dropped it. Won't be too high to when it goes in an envelope. All right, so that finishes off the front of my card. Isn't that lovely? And now I've got another panel. I think I mentioned that I'm not going to give you any of the cardstock dimensions on this video, but you can go to my website, www.handcraftingwithheather, and do a search for any of the stamp sets, Fabulous Florets, En Francais, Create a Cupcake, or you can do a search for DD99, which is Dynamic Duos Challenge number 99, because they were the inspiration for these colors. So any of those search terms should pop up this this project right away for you so that you can find it and you'll be able to see all of the cardstock cuts right there for you online. All right, so for the inside of the card, I wanted to use some of the same elements from the front. So I'm going to use the leaf and the two flowers, also in the basic gray and rich raspberry. So we'll start by stamping our leaf twice, once full strength, and then I'm going to stamp off. Now I should mention I always stamp my stamp up again, because if you don't, you get harsh lines where it went off the page. It doesn't just stamp nicely and then stamp again. You'll get weird weird lines. So I'm going to stamp off on my page here, and then I'll stamp here my lighter image. Oh, and look, there's where I was talking about it gives that spot. I'm going to just have to try and cover that up using my rich raspberry ink. And first I'll do my smoky slate flower, and I'll do that one right here. And then I'll come back in with the rich raspberry and see if I can't cover up that little spot a little bit. And if not, I've got two options. I can either start over on the inside again, or I can just chalk it up to it's a handmade card, and sometimes those little things happen. So, see, look, can barely see it. So that'll be the inside of my card. I'm going to add that in with my Tombow multi-purpose liquid glue. I find that's pretty quick and easy. And like I said, I like that it gives me a little bit of maneuverability before it sets. I can kind of move it around to make sure it's in the right place. Smooth that on, and I have a lovely happy birthday card featuring some of those lovely products that are going to be retiring from Stampin' Up. So glad that you came to create with me today. I hope that you will make a project like this of your own and share with me on my blog. Leave me a comment. I always love to hear from you. Thanks so much. Have a great day.